This video is going to be my experience of the WINHEC, World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium's accreditation process. This tutorial is a part of my final placement assignment for the completion of my Masters of Social Work program. I would like to say nyawa to Six Nations Polytechnic and President CEO Rebecca Jameson for allowing me to be a part of this process. WINHEC was established in 2002 at the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education in Alberta, Canada. WINHEC brings together professionals to achieve common goals through higher education. There are a number of different countries that are now members of WINHEC, and for example, New Zealand, Australia, Sami Nation, United States that also includes Alaska and Hawaii, and throughout Canada. Such members come from a variety of diverse areas such as university departments, research organizations, government agencies, indigenous programs, and institutes such as Six Nations Polytechnic. Six Nations Polytechnic started the process with a letter of intent that had been sent off to the WINHEC Accreditation Authority. To start this process, it was done in March of 2016. Who is eligible to apply is described in the handbooks such as Indigenous Serving Institutes, organizations, schools, or programs such as Indigenous Language or Indigenous Studies that serves an Indigenous population. WINHEC Accrediting Authority has developed handbooks for the different accrediting areas such as preschool to secondary, Indigenous teachers education, and higher education. The handbook gives a detailed description of the process. After Six Nations Polytech submitted their letter of intent, which is the starting point, we attended the WINHEC Annual General Meeting, which was in Otaki, New Zealand, in September 2016. We were presented with information on our intent to become accredited by WINHEC, which is Phase 2 of the eligibility requirement of the application. Six Nations Polytechnic shared a brief history and an overview of where they are today. Other institutes, programs, and organizations are able to present their story during this time as well. I observed a lot of gratification, strength, and resilience in their accomplishments, but there were also stories of struggles and a true sense of pride in overcoming them. WINHEC likes to meet around the same time as WIPSI, the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education, and Six Nations Polytechnic shared that they were going to host WINHEC's AGM next year, along with hosting WIPSI in July of 2017.
So Six Nations Polytechnic decided to go through the WINHEC accreditation for a couple of reasons. One, we had gone through provincial accreditation for a language degree because we wanted to be able to offer the degree and have students with a degree that was portable anywhere in the province and the country. So we went through that provincial accreditation, but it really wasn't that helpful in the sense of affirming our knowledge and our priorities in terms of knowing the language and what we thought mattered. And so we looked at the WINHEC accreditation because it's a critical examination of Indigenous values applied to Indigenous learning and Indigenous knowledge systems. So that's why we went through an Indigenous accreditation process, because it meant far more to us than checking the box on other systems.
That's what it's all about. It's to try and bring in as much as possible the native thought, your indigenous knowledge, your indigenous ways of knowing and teaching and understanding, and making it a part of, your educational organization. So I think the whole part of the process, the accreditation process, brought that back to the forefront again, because when you're there and you're teaching and you're working, and you've got deadlines to meet and things to do and tests to mark and all of those kinds of things, sometimes that indigenous knowledge, that indigenous thought can sometimes get, sort of not lost, but maybe set aside. And just going through the process of accreditation with WINHEC brought that all back, that this is important. You need to get back on track with that. And I think that was an important part for myself to see, again, through the accreditation process, that we need to go back and we need to really closely look at how are we doing those things within our classrooms, within our teaching, within our education system at Six Nations Polytech. So that was a very important point for me, to go back and start doing those kinds of things again.
Phase 3 was the next step, which was preparing for the self-study and scheduling for the accreditation visit. There was a number of items that was needed to be completed within the self-study. This report is an extensive document giving detailed information of Six Nations Polytechnic. An example of information that was required are mission and goals, integrity of the organization, cultural standards, policies, staffing and linkages, academics, program information, what Indigenous education looks like, teaching, resources, finances, effectiveness, and authority. Six Nations Polytechnic site visit occurred in May 2017 and is Phase 4. We were very fortunate to have a great site visit team, Yahweh to Delbert and Laura Horton, Walter Kamuhuko, and Tom Deere, who was our local representative. A part of the site visit team, the organization is required to have a local representative that is aware of the organization and suggested to be an elder or someone knowledge of the culture and traditions of the people, community, and organization. There is a scheduled example given in a handbook that you are able to follow. The task of the team is consisted of meeting with board, staff, instructors, students, partners, community, and educational institutes. Something that I noticed that needs to take into consideration was the scheduling. There was not a lot of time given for the amount of work that is required by the site visit team. The team prepared a draft report that consisted of accommodations or recommendations and was reported back to the board, staff, and others that were able to attend. The draft report is then submitted to the WINHEC's Accreditation Authority for consideration. Phase 5 is the approving of accreditation, and this was done in July 2017 at WINHEC's annual general meeting, where Six Nations Polytechnic was happy to host. We are very fortunate to receive a 10-year accreditation, and there are 2 more phases that Six Nations Polytechnic will need to do during this 10-year period, which is a midterm report and a reapplication that can be described in another video. All accreditation processes are that of the organization and may not be similar to Six Nations Polytechnic, as this is our example that is being shared. Now to the World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium and to Six Nations Polytechnic for such an amazing experience. Yahweh.
La